So these theatre reviews, I've mainly talked about how musicals have been adapted to the screen, some being successful and others absolute failures. But of course, as many people would agree with, is that when you're adapting to the screen, major changes has to be made, whether from a story and structure point of view, or from style and tone, or maybe even both. But today we're going to be looking at a musical that was very, very Broadway, and yet somehow adapting to the screen proved more successful than we thought, to a point where a lot of people believe that the film is better. We're going to be talking about the Academy Award-winning Chicago. The history of how the musical came about first started with where and when the story took place, in 1920s Chicago, as reporter Maureen Dallas Watkins was covering the trials of Beulah Anna and Belva Gardner, as the more high-profile cases involved women murdering husbands and lovers, which can be debated on how this was part of how women were changing their views and roles during the Roaring Twenties. These trials, including murderesses, caused arguments over beautiful women being convicted, but also how maybe these women were using their attractiveness to get away with murder. Watkins covering these two particular women gave her the inspiration to write a play, writing two leading female characters that were inspired by Anna and Gardner, such as playing a recorder player over and over, and the other was a cabaret singer. Yeah, sound familiar? The play was well received by both audiences and critics, and later a silent film was released in 1927 and was remade in 1942 named Roxy Hart, starring Ginger Rogers. It wasn't until the 60s when the musical came around, as Gwen Verdon and Bob Fosse saw the potential but only gained the rights after Watkins' death as she declined before. The music was inspired by vaudeville numbers and was choreographed that way in order to display the themes of show business and justice, and opened on Broadway in 1975, but only lasted until 1977. However, it was revived in 1996 and has become the longest-running musical revival. The film adaptation of the musical was released in 2002, directed by Rob Marshall, starring Renee Zellweger, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Richard Gere, and won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Of course, the interesting thing about the stage production is that while the story was being told, the songs were more like sketches of vaudeville, in a way that sort of glamorizes the idea of crime and murder. This made it very, well, Broadway, using Brechtian techniques which a lot of theatre embraces. So already there's that challenge of adapting it to a movie. However, as the main character Roxy Hart dreams about becoming a star and taking the stage, this gave the idea that the songs would become fantasies of the characters, which allowed the sketches to still be there but also relate to the main story that is going on in the real world. And it is made very clearly so with the style and tone and colours that pop up in the musical numbers, while the reality is a lot more dirty and gritty. The factor that helped the musical numbers connect to the stories was the transition. For example, when the police are investigating the crime scene at Roxy's place, they shine a flashlight in her face. This gives the illusion of a spotlight shining on her as she's listening to her husband Amos talking, which leads her to sing Funny Honey. Another example is when Roxy is being interviewed in front of the press, but Billy Flynn answers the questions for her, and even refers to Roxy as a dummy, which suddenly leads to the song Both Reach for the Gun, where Roxy is made a literal dummy, controlled by Billy, but also show how he's controlling the press by making them puppets. Oh, I am so tempted to use the Ed Wood clip, you have no idea. So a lot of these musical numbers were symbolic, but they had a sense of irony running through them as well, especially in songs like When You're Good to Mama and All I Care About. These fantasies allowed to incorporate choreography and more of a theatre feel, but also involve the editing and the cinematography to make it feel more like a film at the same time, which definitely shows in the cell block tango, which is probably why that's my favourite scene in the movie. But, however, there are songs, or at least two songs, that are in the universe of the story. These two songs are being All That Jazz and Nowadays Hot Honey Rag, which are the very first and the very last of the songs in the movie.
And I like how all that jazz showed more of a leadway to all the fantasies that happen for the rest of the story, where Roxy, of course, is observing the show that is held at the Onyx Club, in which all the fantasies take place in the same location, which also connects to the character of Roxy, but also to Velma, as of course it is where she was working before she was arrested. In fact, the fantasies also symbolize the characteristics, such as the costumes. Roxy wears a lot of pale pink colours or light silver, showing her naivete, while Velma wears bold, darker colours, showing her confidence and sexuality. Characters even come off from the way the musical numbers are staged, as Velma has more dance, showing her experience of theatre, while Roxy either just sings by the piano or have men carry her around, showing her lack of experience.
We even have fantasies that glamorize the idea of someone getting hanged, like making it look like an acrobatic stunt, or the pressure of a trial being turned into a tap dance. This could actually relate to what Maureen Watkins believed was a disadvantage of her play.
The reason why Watkins declined the rights for her play was that she felt that her play encouraged a scandalous lifestyle of crime, which you could argue is a problem with the musical. However, I think the movie improved this by clearly showing the grim reality of prison life, but also making a satire of how chaotic the press and the justice system can be, especially in the 1920s. As Billy points out, this trial, the whole world, it's all show business, which again is symbolized by the musical numbers.
The best word to describe Chicago is stylized. This is probably what made it very, very different from the stage production. But much like Sweeney Todd, it knows that it's making a movie, but yet still involve the Broadway elements to not completely alienate theatregoers, but also involve moviegoers as well. So in the end, it's kind of successful for both groups. To me personally, these ideas improved the story and had more of a connection with the songs, as well as treating it as like a satire to the 1920s of crime and the press and women. And so I think the musical adaptation into a movie proved successful, and it clearly shows. Although for my next review, considering I've been talking about an American musical, I mean, yeah, it's named after an American city. I was thinking I might do a theatre production that might not be well known outside of the UK, but it's definitely worth more the attention. I'll see you in the next review. Bye!